The bridge of the UNS Indomitable shuddered, not from impact, but from the sheer acoustic violence of the psychic singularity tearing open the void outside. Alara gripped the command console, her knuckles white, feeling the vibration rattle through the deck, plating it into her bones. Beside her, Commander Vance didn't flinch. He just checked the charge on his mag rifle, a grin cutting across his face that was all teeth and adrenaline. "They're trying to override our neural pathways," the comms officer screamed over the klaxons. "Let them try," Alara said, her voice steady despite the psychic pressure pounding against her skull. She looked at Vance. The connection between them wasn't telepathic, it was forged in the heat of survival. A raw, electric trust that no hive mind could replicate. "Ready the scramble pulse. Chaos is just a strategy you haven't calculated yet." Vance quoted her own words back to her, his hand hovering over the activation key. The singularity expanded, a blinding halo of violet light threatening to consume the Terran fleet. In the face of this cosmic perfection, the messy, loud defiance of the Solara Republic stood its ground. "Now!" Alara shouted. 3 years earlier, the silence in the Galactic Council had been absolute. Imperator Xylos stood on the floating dais, looking down at the human delegation with eyes devoid of warmth. Beside him, Alara kept her head bowed, playing the part of the shameful secret. To the Ascendancy, she was a broken thing, a mute in a choir, a daughter born without the telepathic gift that bound their society together. "You seek a peace offering," Xylos intoned, his voice projecting directly into the minds of the ambassadors. "Take this." He gestured dismissively to Alara. "She is defective, blind to the chorus, a fitting gift for a species that still relies on crude vocalizations." Ambassador Hayes didn't recoil. He stepped forward, his heavy boots echoing on the polished floor, a jarring, rhythmic sound in a room built for silence. He looked at Alara, not with pity, but with curiosity. "We accept," Hayes said, his voice amplified, booming through the chamber. "The Terran spirit values what you discard." As they walked away, Xylos thought he had burdened the humans with a cripple. He didn't realize the Empire's fatal error wasn't war, it was a gift. They gave us their garbage. We forged a queen. Life among the humans was a collision of noise and color. Alara expected a prison. She found a workshop. On Earth, her lack of telepathy wasn't a disability. It was a shield. She watched human ingenuity at work, marveling at how they built redundant systems, argued passionately, and failed only to rise again stronger. She read every ancient science fiction story in their archives, understanding that humanity had been dreaming of the stars long before they could reach them. She learned that humans were the galaxy's space orcs, stubborn, durable, and terrifyingly inventive. They were a Death Worlder species, evolved to survive in environments that would shatter the fragile psyche of an ascendancy drone. "Telepathy orders the universe, but engineering breaks it," Vance had told her during a combat sim, pulling her up from the mud after a failed maneuver. "You don't need to hear their thoughts, Alara. You just need to be faster than their reaction time." Then came the attack. The Ascendancy fleet arrived without declaration, a geometric perfection of white hulls blotting out the sun. They came to prune the unruly human element before it spread. They expected the humans to break under the psychic weight of the hive. On the command deck, Alara watched the tactical map turn red. The Ascendancy forces moved in perfect unison, a singular organism of destruction, a true apex predator of the mind. But they had never fought someone who knew their rhythm. Alara stepped up to the comms, pushing past the stunned tactical officer. She looked at Vance, and the air between them crackled with the intent of two warriors about to change the rules of the game. "Open a channel to all ships," Alara commanded, her voice finding the steel she had forged on Earth. "It's time to teach my father a lesson." The bridge of the UNS Indomitable dissolved into a kaleidoscope of warning lights. The violet maw of the singularity widened, pulling the forward shields into its gravity well. The sound was a physical weight, a high-pitched scream tearing through the hull. "Shields are at critical," Vance roared, fighting the G-force to reach Alara. He didn't pull her away from the console. He braced himself behind her, his chest against her back, locking his arms around the station to anchor them both. Do it, Alara. Break them. The heat radiating from him was the only thing grounding her in the chaos. Alara closed her eyes, visualizing the pristine, crystalline lattice of the Ascendancy's neural network. It was beautiful, rigid, and utterly fragile. Engage the discord frequency, Alara whispered, her voice cutting through the noise. Vance punched the final sequence. The human ingenuity Alara had weaponized didn't fire plasma, it fired noise. Every human ship in the fleet began broadcasting a cacophony of disorganized, data-ancient rock music, mathematical paradoxes, conflicting navigational charts, and raw, unfiltered emotional bursts. It was the digital essence of humanity, messy, loud, and impossible to predict. The effect was instantaneous. The singularity faltered. The Ascendancy ships, locked in their perfect formation, began to drift. Their pilots, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of chaotic variables, couldn't process the lack of order. They were an apex predator that had forgotten how to hunt outside a cage. "They're breaking formation," the tactical officer shouted, the fear in his voice replaced by savage triumph. "Press the advantage," Alara ordered, leaning back into Vance's support as the ship lurched. "Show them why we are the Deathworlders." The Terran fleet surged forward, a swarm of angry wasps dismantling a glass sculpture. The Space Orcs of Solara didn't fight with elegance. They fought with kinetic rounds and hull-to-hull impacts, shattering the delicate telepathic web Xylos had spent centuries weaving. On the main screen, the violet light imploded. The psychic feedback loop snapped back to the source. Xylos's flagship went dark, its perfect white hull drifting listlessly in the void. Silence returned to the bridge, but it wasn't the heavy, suffocating silence of the Galactic Council. It was the cooling tick of metal, the heavy breathing of the crew, and the hum of survival. Vance slowly released his grip on the console but kept his hand on Alara's shoulder. The adrenaline was still spiking in his blood, making the contact between them burn. She turned, looking up at him. His face was smeared with oil and sweat, grinning like a madman. "We did it," he breathed, the realization hitting him. "You broke the hive." In the weeks that followed, the sci-fi nightmare of the Ascendancy dissolved into 100 squabbling free nations. The drones, severed from the will of the Imperator, woke up. They were confused, terrified, and free. Delegates from the shattered empire came to Alara, bowing low. They offered her the throne, the crystalline crown of her father. They wanted a new voice to tell them who to be. Alara stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, looking out at the starfield, a tapestry of infinite variables. Vance stood beside her, watching her profile. "They're waiting for an answer, Your Highness," Vance teased, though his eyes were serious. He was waiting for the answer, too. Alara looked at the crown, then at the vast, unmapped dark between the stars. She looked at Vance, feeling that magnetic pull that no telepathy could emulate, the choice to be with someone, not the compulsion. "Tell them I decline," Alara said, turning her back on the crown. "True innovation requires the freedom to fail. If I rule them, they'll never learn to fly." "So, what's the plan?" Vance asked, stepping closer. The distance between them vanishing. Alara smiled, a true Terran spirit burning in her eyes. "I hear there's a nebula in the outer rim that defies physics. I want to see if we can break it." Vance laughed, the sound bright and victorious against the dark. "Course laid in."